All right, all right, all right. Hello, 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 good people, and welcome to Happy Healthy Whole with Sharea. Today I am talking what financial planning for therapists you need to know related to starting your practice. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I am trying to pick up my notes. Give me just a quick moment to do so, and then we can get started. There we go. There we go. Notes on, ready, go. If you're here, say hello. Absolutely enjoy talking when we can. I'm going to keep doing these live. I think what I may start doing is doing some pre-recorded ones just because my schedule is starting to fill up. And then as we grow and move in this area, I will begin to get back onto the live ones. But I will still do Wednesday wisdom for small businesses and small businesses as well as private practice, starting your own therapy practice specifically. So, what we talking about today? Where you gonna get the money at to start this business of yours? So, I am excited to dive into this one because many of us have different angles or different ways that we can do or have started our business. And today happens, or this month is actually Women's Business Month. And so I feel like it's important for me to also make some obvious statements around funding, budgeting, and things like that. But I also just want to stay in the realm of financial planning for a small practice, or really starting to think about things like setting your rate, budgeting for your practice, and managing your taxes. All three areas become extremely important as you venture into private practice. So I want to say that, and also still acknowledge that it's Women's Small Business Awareness Month. And I hope that we are supporting each other as well as helping to support women businesses grow as we do. All right. That being said, these three things that I mentioned, meaning the setting of your rates, the budget for your practice, and managing your taxes, are the fundamental aspects of handling and keeping your business well. And so when I think about building and thriving, these are the three things that have been able to keep me successful over the last going on 9 years. No, December the 1st, I'll be celebrating an anniversary. Going on 9 years as a practice. So let's begin with the one that seems like the most important step, which is setting your rates. When you are determining your rates, you want to really think about a lot of different aspects or factors. And the first thing is your location. So, for example, depending upon where you are related to it being a practice in a major city, where the market rates will be different from a rural area, is going to be extremely important. So, for example, I am across the bridge from Philadelphia, and literally I can see the skyline. And so my rates are going to be reflective of a major city that is next to me, as well as the suburb that I'm actually located in. And so thinking about those things around looking at what the typical rates are and how they are changing or have changed over the years. So doing things like doing a analysis around other therapists in the location and what they're charging. And that research becomes extremely important because these are your colleagues and they have a sense of what a going rate in that area really looks like because they've already been in practice. So you really want to kind of do that market research or do that research up front before just throwing out a price. I am not the person that's going to tell you what your price should be. What I will say is that it should be comparable to what is the going rate in your area. And the next thing is going to help it to elevate, which is your level of experience and qualification. So now I'm going to say you are doing that market research around who's in your area, what they're charging, and then you're going to look at your level of qualifications and your experience. If you're just starting out, your rate may be lower than a therapist who has been in practice for 10 years or has a specialized certification. So you want to make sure that you don't try to price yourself according to having a area or a specialty area and you're not yet qualified to really kind of market at that higher rate. But don't undervalue yourself at the same time. This isn't giveaway services just because I'm brand new, because I don't believe in that. You want to find that unique balance. So for example, if someone has 10 plus years experience and they're charging $100, these are not real rates, and they're charging $100, then you might say, I'm going to charge 85 to 90, but you don't want to do something like charge 50, which is pretty much cutting down or a disservice to your actual education or profession, right? And so you want to be able to find that balance as you grow yourself and specialize specifically in who you're going to, in your certifications over the year. Then you also can start to up your rate as you go. So for example, using my real rates, I started with, I believe, 110, and slowly, I mean, over the time, because I no longer see clients, I'm just going to say that up front. Solely, I moved up to 135, 150. And then if you are able to see me now, specifically, if you are seeing me in private practice, if I were to take, my rate can go as high as 200, or excuse me, can be 200 or even higher. And so really understanding that your level of expertise and your area of expertise matters, your location matters, but then this is the key that will allow you, well, there's two more things. You want to be able to niche yourself as a specialty along with that certifications and experience. So when we're considering another major factor in how we set our rates, know your niche or your specialty. If you provide a specialized services like trauma-informed therapy or couple therapy, you might be able to charge a slightly higher rate because of the area of expertise and maybe possibly the lack of and or not having a high level of competition. And I'm going to talk about competition, which you'll hear me instead of say competition, but motivation. Clients often are willing to pay a premium for a therapist who has specialties. So for example, EMDR might be an area that you've gotten certified in, and now you have been able to work with veterans who are dealing with post-traumatic stress, and that's now your niche and your specialty with your specialized certification. So understanding that your education and your experience, meaning qualifications, are not your niche. Your niche is when you start to bring in your certifications and qualifications or and then make them special to a population of service that you may see. So for example, that PTSD client that you are using EMDR with, that are either experiencing trauma and or flashbacks or other areas of trauma that they want to resolve, right? So your area of specialty is going to help to decide your rate. And then when we think about it, our motivators, or in other words, the competitors in our area, make sure your rates are reflective of the values that you provide. So you want to remember that your expertise are worth something. It's not okay to be undercharging, but it is okay to charge your worth. Keep in mind that underpricing your services can also be a form of causing burnout and leading you to cause burnout because you have to do more and see more clients to make profit. If you're unsure as to where to start, think about things like researching your area, understanding your niche, and understanding your level of education and experience. So that target income can also be a way to calculate how much you need to charge to be able to get. So I'm going to go into budgeting next, but think about it from this perspective. If I'm going to charge I want to make $100,000. That's going to include my taxes. That's going to include what I'm going to live off of, right? I'm going to pay for my insurance under there. I want to make $100,000. Then I need to say to myself, how many clients can I see? How many billable hours will I need to be able to see clients each week and it not burn me out, as well as allow me to do administrative work, marketing, and continuing education. So all of those factors in needs to be how you come up with that expense for what you need to charge what you need to charge per hour. At some point, maybe what I'll do is a pre-recorded one where I actually kind of break that down, just the rates portion. If that's something that you're interested in and or want to see, let me know. Next is budgeting for your practice. Budget, budget, budget. Now, everybody is different on how they feel about this, but for me, a successfully ran practice, any form of business needs a budget, and your practice is no different. Your lifestyle is no different. Financially, being able to make sure that you're investing and knowing what your expenses and your revenue are going to allow for you to actually start to grow. So start by identifying what is considered your fixed cost, those things that are associated with actually running your business. That's going to be things like rent for your office space, your utilities, liability insurance, your EHR, which is your electronic health record system. So whatever system you're going to use, all of those are going to be fixed things that you have to pay out no matter what. Your professional license, your memberships, all of those things need to be considered a part of your fixed costs in your budget. Then you want to think about variables. This is the one that kind of messes up a lot of people because we sometimes will overspend and or not invest in these areas because we kind of think we can find a shortcut around it. But our time is money, and you'll hear me say that if you ever get a chance to take one of my courses that are specific to marketing and or thinking about how to make your business profitable, one of the things that we don't realize is that our time is money. So how to outsource is also another thing, but not going to talk about that today. Sorry. But variables, things like your marketing expenses, your professional development, and office supplies, things that you don't really think of, but they're happening no matter what. Your telehealth platforms, some of them go up, some of them change, your conferencing tools, all the things that you might need to actually create the environment in which you are creating for your client, be it telehealth and or office. You may want to make sure you have a specific budget each year for continuing educations. If you know, like all of us, we have licensures that we have, and we have a requirement that says I need to do, for myself, I'll use mine, I need to do 40 credits every 2 years. And so those are broken down by ethics, cultural competency, all the different areas. But I know what my budget is for each year. And then certain years when I'm doing specialty work around like my EMDR certifications to try to keep it and or to kind of get more experience, I might make my budget a little higher, knowing that that's what I want my area of expertise to be in as I'm promoting the practice. So thinking about it from that perspective. One of the things you also want to do is to plan for profitability. When we think about it, we are looking at, and this is just a YouTube channel video or a YouTube video, so it's going to make more sense if we have more time and I could break it down. But when you think about it, you want to think of it from a 20 to 30% margin of profit. Your goal is to be able to have that as your aim for what you want to actually make related to things like covering your expenses and your costs, and you still have 20 to 30% of your revenue left over for things like savings, investments, and business growth. That's why it's also important, and I didn't say this earlier, is to pay yourself a income and or to pay yourself a salary so that you know that that's what you live off of, and your business can get that 20 to 30% profit margin so that you can start investing in it for business growth. It's also important to plan for emergencies. The reality is that you're human. Financial emergencies can include things like something breaking down, your system, your computers, your different things falling apart. Finding that way to save for emergencies is going to help you have a financial cushion that can be in the form of a savings while you're also getting equity or interest on it, and try to make sure that it is yielding you a higher interest rate as much as possible. And it helps you to grow your savings at the same time, keeping it accessible so that you can use it for emergency funds, which is different than what might be your investments like stocks and all those things, which I'm not going to get into today because that's not what we're here for. But lastly, tracking your cash flow and regularly looking at your budget is going to be extremely important. I review my budget every month between the 1st and the 5th. It's literally on a checklist that I've created. And the point is that I need to make sure that I'm staying on track. But also, if I'm falling behind, I may need to change and or reevaluate what services I might need to add on. Remember, I am a outpatient slash therapy practice and a consulting agency, which is part of how I scaled. And that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video. And I scaled that way in order to have more time and more freedom. Now, The last thing that I'm going to talk about is taxes. Taxes suck, but the reality is, as a self-employed person who's running a practice, you need to make sure that you are covering your income taxes, such as Social Security and Medicare and those types of things. So unlike employees who have these taxes automatically deducted, you are going to, depending on how you start your practice legally, have to make sure that you are considering setting aside 25 to 30%. That's why the numbers sound great when we're like, oh, I'm making 150 an hour and I'm going to break it down. But that 150 an hour, if you think about what I just said, profit of 20 to 30, now setting aside 25 to 30, all of a sudden, literally 50% of your income is set aside to be able to make sure that you are investing in your future and growing your practice. And so when we think about it from that perspective, we need to make sure that we're doing things like paying our quarterly taxes related to that amount that we're setting aside, transferring it out of our accessible accounts that will make us spend money or allow us to spend money and we not realize that it's not going to then be allocated towards taxes. And then also making sure that we're not missing payments so that we don't get penalties. So remembering things like your payments are usually June, September, and January for the year. And so those things will allow for you to start getting yourself adapted to paying your taxes as part of your accountant. Now, because this disclaimer, because I am not giving legal advice and or tax advice, it's important to have a consult with an accountant related to the form of structure you created for your business, which is like your LLC or your S Corp, depending on what you created. And then understanding what your tax requirements are going to be based off the state as well as federal. So you need to consult with an actual accountant as much as possible before starting so that you can have a sense of what to do moving forward. Because that first year of not doing it will hit you hard. And I learned it the hard way with not realizing that my business, when I grew it, and specifically scaled, that I didn't pay enough quarterly taxes and ended up having to pay. It wasn't a huge issue because I had that financial savings as well as I have a portfolio related to stocks and things. So it wasn't a huge issue. However, it still was an expense that was not planned. And now I have to be able to plan it forward moving forward. So those are my 3 areas to start with when it comes to financial planning: setting the right rate, budgeting for your practice, and managing your taxes. When we think about setting our rates to reflect the value, the location, and the niche, we'll be able to remain competitive. When we think about budgeting for our practice by tracking fixed and variable costs, planning planning for profitability and scaling your practice is important, but also setting aside for emergencies. It helps you to grow as well as to know that you're safe and secure in your practice. And then managing your taxes by setting aside portions of the income that you're making and then having those quarterly payments set up well in advance and making sure you consult an accountant so you know that you're paying enough and or know the process in which you need to pay. All of these things are going to be very important in controlling and maintaining a practice. Take control of your finances now at the beginning as much as possible, because what may seem daunting and frustrating and not your area of expertise can help you to be profitable and sustainable and grow to a place where you are now able to live without feeling so stressful or being able to grow, and know that your practice can thrive as well as you can live a flexible, free life when you actually take care of the money portion. If you found this video helpful, if I could answer any questions, feel free to like the video, share the video with others that might benefit from it, as well as if you're managing a practice, I'd love to hear things like your name, who you are, where you are, all of those things, because I love to collaborate as well as to support other practices. If I mentioned earlier that it's Women's Business Month, if you have it in your budget, find a moment to support a woman's business this month. All right, y'all, take good care of yourselves. Be well.